She's April.
And she's Molly.
And we are
the Book Besties. The dog was the mayor.
Maybe there's a set of lesbian moms who are pissed off about their taxes.
They fuck in a limousine, so.
I am here for the hair pulling, ass smacking, hot dirty sex.
There should be large penises that are inexplicably large.
I'm waffling. I am genuinely waffling.
It's not always the editor that's the problem. Editing by Thomas Watkins. Well, you're not Molly.
Again, it's Nurse Katie.
Honorary Book Bestie Nurse Katie is here.
Yes.
Because Molly is having some health issues right now, and I basically texted Katie and was like, I have to film in like 3 days. Can you read a book for me?
And I said, yes, I can. Let me make sure my local library has it. And they did support local libraries. And here we are. Yeah.
Yay. Yes, please support local libraries. Keeps me employed.
And it gives me somewhere to pawn my kids off for. Not that I'm that mom. I'm not that mom. And I wasn't that mom when they were little. Like,
the children's librarian in me is like, fuck you.
No, I didn't mean it like that. I mean, now that they're older, like, I can go to my section and they can go to their section. Like, I was the good mom. I picked up all the toys. Yeah. We sang the cleanup song. Like, I was the good mom when my kids were little. Like, I don't pull that shit.
It does not matter the number of signs that I set up. They will not clean up after themselves.
Yeah, no.
Ridiculous.
That's not
and
cool.
I've had to like stop people from changing diapers in the play area. I'm like, we have a changing table. It's just like right there. Like you just
That's
go in there.
Disgusting.
It's a health issue, you know?
Yeah.
So, I'm wearing my neurodiversity shirt today.
I love it.
The month of April is Autism Acceptance Month. We are very aware it exists. So we no longer need to be aware of it.
Yes, we are learning quite a bit about neurodiversion in our house as well. So I have on my #NurseLife
nice
shirt. So nice. This one of my nurse managers got it for me for Nurses Week like a couple years ago. It's one of those like ridiculously soft gray t-shirts that I wear all the time.
This is so soft. I got it on Etsy and it's so soft.
Yeah. You find those t-shirts that you're like, I'm just going to live in this one till it falls apart. So, yeah.
Well, everyone in this house, every one of the Watkinses has some sort of neurodivergence. Well, I mean, Sam isn't like diagnosed with anything yet, but I kind of think he might be ADHD.
Yeah.
One day we drove home from buying Pokemon cards, and it was just the two of us in the car, and it takes about little over 30 minutes to get home from where we were, and he didn't stop talking the entire time. He answered the questions that he asked me himself, and then just kept talking. And I was just like, bruh, I'm exhausted right now.
Take a breath.
So, but I saw this really fabulous, she's local to my area in coastal Virginia, autism advocate who's written a few books, and both of her sons are on the spectrum. And she did a presentation at my library last month because March is National Developmental Disability Awareness Month, which is like a mouthful. Yeah. But we did all sorts of things to support disabilities, both visible and invisible. Yeah. And she came and spoke, and she was talking about like STEMing and how important it is for people on the spectrum to just be allowed to STEM. And so I was talking to James about it because it's only been this school year that we've really used the word autism with him. Like he was diagnosed with autism when he was 7, but we knew he had some sort of neurodivergence like long before that. But this year was the first year we were really like, autism. This is what it is. This is why. This is what it means that you're different, and it's totally fine. But I talked to him about stemming, and he was like, so when I start like jumping up and down and doing, which he does a lot, he makes this noise. Is that okay? And I was like, yeah, that's okay.
That's his stem. Yeah.
That's why we made sure to get accommodations for him where he gets one-on-one testing.
Mhm.
So he can do whatever he needs to do to make his body feel comfortable to take those tests.
Yeah. Because if
So,
his body is fighting his brain, there is not going to
mhm,
be anything productive except an
100%.
argument. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
100%. And I've noticed Sam doing some stemming type stuff recently. And I
Yeah.
don't think what is going on with him is autism. I really think it's ADHD, though they have some, similarities and crossovers. But his teacher keeps telling me in the classroom, he's like a normal 6-year-old. And I'm like, okay. Then he saves all his energy for home.
We always say that normal is a setting on the dryer. It is
Oh,
not
yeah.
anything to do with your
Mm-mm.
brain waves and how you function as a person. It is how you dry clothes. So, yeah.
Well, and now that we have this umbrella of neurodiversity, I just feel like almost everything fits under it. And I just don't feel like there are people that exist that are neurotypical.
Yeah,
They
not
just
anymore.
don't have a label.
Yeah. Yep.
Because really everything fits under it. So I have an anxiety disorder, and I talk about that a lot on here. And I have OCD as part of my anxiety disorder, which is why my job, like, it feeds that. Like,
Mhm.
everything is in its place and it has a
Mhm.
system of organization. And that is a neurodivergence. So I am neurodivergent too.
Yeah.
But anyway, I love the shirt, and the woman who spoke, she was really great. I'll put a link below to her information, because not only is she local, but if you are not in coastal Virginia, as most of our listeners are not, she actually has a podcast as well.
Nice.
So, which is really cool.
Do the flowers on your shirt mean something, or is it just cute flowers?
So they're in the rainbow colors,
Yeah, I got
which
that, but like the actual flower, is there any reason for it,
no.
or okay.
So each of these are like colors that
Yeah.
those particular flowers would be. But the rainbow is now the representation for the spectrum. For those of you that do not know, Katie might, because she works in healthcare, but um, people that are autistic, first of all, a lot of people that are autistic prefer to be called autistic people and not use people first language. I'm letting James use whatever he wants to use. Side note, the other day he said something about being autistic, and I was like, how do you feel about that? He was like, I'm fine with it. I've
Good.
accepted it. It's who I am.
Good.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
I cried a little bit.
It's a lot of insight. Yeah.
Yeah. But they no longer like the puzzle piece, because they're
Mhm.
not puzzles to be figured
Mm-mm.
out. And I actually have another shirt coming that says people, not puzzles, and has an
Yeah.
infinity symbol that's in rainbow. But the rainbow is now something that autism has adopted, because that's a spectrum. That all
Mhm.
light spectrum split
Mhm.
is a rainbow.
Yep.
Which I had to explain to my husband, because I brought him home a sticker that had a frog on it that said, I'm doing my best, and was holding a heart that had was rainbow colored. And he was
Uh-huh.
like, that's not autism. That's LGBTQ. I was like, no, baby, it isn't. I promise
Yes,
you.
but no. Yes, but
Yes,
no.
but
Yeah.
not in this case.
I hear you, but that's not exactly what I was after. Yeah.
So anyway, so hey, the end of this month, April 29th, we are going to the Annapolis Book Festival, and you are
I
coming
know.
with
I'm
us.
so excited. I have my hotel booked, and I was like
I know.
making my Yelp pages because I have to eat a donut in all 50 states. So I had to find my one for
Oh, I
Maryland.
forgot that was a goal for you.
Yeah. So I had to do that. And then I've also like really wanted like actual seafood because I live in Ohio,
Hmm.
so we don't get seafood. So
Right.
I was like, I have to have crab cake. So I'm in Maryland. So
Hmm.
I was like doing all that. Yeah, I'm super excited. And I've been
Well,
reading books too. Like I read one of the authors and that you
yeah,
read, working on a second one. And yeah, so I'm
yeah.
excited. Yeah.
I was going to show off the books, but
Yes,
I'm banking
please.
on you having some good eating suggestions, because I love eating
Yes.
local when I go
Hmm.
places. Like, I don't want to eat chain restaurants, because I can
Same.
do that at home.
Same. Yeah.
Um, exactly. But this interesting trivia for our listeners. Molly and Katie have never actually met in
Yep.
person. So they are going to meet in person for the first time at the end of this month. And that's just crazy to me, because the other fun trivia is we haven't actually seen each other in person since high school.
Hmm. Yeah.
And we graduated
23
in 2000.
years. Just a minute ago. Yeah.
2000. So this is when these are some of our authors. We're actually going to be interviewing 6 authors at the con
So jealous. So
at the
jealous.
festival. You keep saying that, but like you'll be there. You can meet them
No,
too.
but you get to like swoon and chat with them, and I just get to fangirl and be like, I like your book.
Okay,
So-
if you don't think that I won't feel fangirl over them, then you don't know me at all. Um, I actually had interesting fact. We had a PR rep from another author reach out to us and ask us if we could interview them.
So cool. That is so cool. I like
Yeah,
just
so
am so proud of you guys for that. And I'm
thank
like,
you.
oh, they're like big girl podcasters, and I'm just a teeny little smidgen of it. And I'm so excited for you guys. And just like,
if someone were paying us, then I would feel like we were big girl podcasters, but we are
No.
still hashtag not sponsored.
It's all right. It's all good.
But I am actually going to be doing like a bonus episode with that author that I'm interviewing her in a couple of weeks.
Fun.
And that one's not going to be an MP3. It'll only be in video on our socials. But so I'm currently reading this one. This is The Christie Affair by Nina DeGrament, I think is how you say her name. I probably need to figure that out before we interview her. But this is a Reese Witherspoon book club pick. And this is the one I'm reading right now. And this book is fucking trippy. Like I text
historical
every
fiction.
time. Yeah, it's told from the point of view of Agatha Christie's husband's mistress. And it's about the time that she went missing, the 11 days that Agatha Christie went missing, that like nobody ever knew what happened to her. So she is telling what actually happened. It's clever. We all know I don't really like historical fiction, but it's really like there's a lot of elements to it that it's like reading an Agatha Christie novel.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, this one, Nikki Payne, Pride and Protest, is her only book right now, but she has a new one that will be out in the fall. This book was so motherfucking good.
Yeah.
Pride and Prejudice retelling with spice in it. Beautiful.
See,
I'm very excited to meet her.
Let's go back to this. Go back to this one. Because it's on I'm waffling. I am genuinely waffling. One, because I used to work with a nurse practitioner named Nikki Allen Payne. So I'm having a hard time, bridging the two of those, that there's somebody else in the world named Nikki Payne. And then two, I hate Pride and Prejudice. It's never been one that I've been like, oh, I love it. And so I'm fighting on that one. I'm fighting like, do I, don't I? So
fun fact about me, I was an English major, but I pride myself on books that are classics that I've never read, and I've never read Pride and Prejudice.
Ugh.
I have seen the movie that Keira Knightley did, and I have seen the miniseries that Colin Firth did, which, oh my gosh. Woo! But him, like, in that, anyway. So I haven't actually read Pride and Prejudice, but I really like this retelling. And I don't want to give too much away, but one of the things I like is that there's a lot of, like, gentrification happening from a really rich company, which this is the guy who runs the company, and it's happening in her neighborhood, and she's African American. And you would think that given like today's like political climate that the adversary, enemies to lovers would be white, but he's actually he's Asian, born in, I cannot remember which country, but adopted by a really wealthy white family. And so there's other layers here that you don't get from Pride and Prejudice that I thought really modernized it. And plus they fuck in a limousine. So
I am here for the hair pulling, ass smacking, hot, dirty sex. So that's about it. And dragons.
And dragons. Especially if their dragons are in a book.
Yes.
With that.
10 out of 10. Yeah.
So Susan Cole is another one we're going to be interviewing. This is her newest book, Bookish People, which is the one that I read. But she wrote a book called Acceptance that was made in a TV movie that starred Joan Cusack.
Yeah.
So that's
heard about that one. Yeah.
Wild Oak by Cece Harrington. I am so excited to meet her. She's actually a teacher at the school that's hosting the event.
Really?
And this is her first book, and it has won so many awards. An ALA award, a Kirkus award. Audible gave it a children's book award for best narration, and the audiobook was fantastic. I really liked it. We actually just picked this. It's going to be one of our Battle of the books for next year, because I was like, this book is so good, we have to read it. We need to make kids read it. So
yes.
And Anthony Mara, Mercury Pictures presents. This is a library copy. He is the keynote for the event, and this is the one that I read, but you are reading another one by him?
Yes, A Constellation of Vital Pieces.
And
Getting into it. Yeah.
I think that one, well, he's been longlisted for a National Book Award, and I think that might be the book that it was for. So Mercury Pictures presents is his newest one.
Yeah.
And then I saved this one for last because I know we both loved it so much.
Yes.
The War Librarian by Addison Armstrong.
I
just want to hug
into
her.
that book. Oh, I love that. It's just so good. So
I
good.
want to fangirl over her because I found a historical fiction novel that I can get on board with.
Yes.
Because it's so well researched. I mean,
so
it's
good.
so well researched.
Her
and you
other
read her
one
other book too, right?
Yes, The Light of Luna Park. So, like, when we were talking about him first, I was like, oh, I'll read that one because it's about nurses. And then I was like, wait a second. I literally remember in women's health, because I hate women's health. It's like I hated labor and delivery in nursing school. I hated being a patient. Not my jam.
You don't
right?
like the kids either.
I don't like the kids. Yeah. But I remember the lecture that we had because the mother baby woman that we had, her name was Mrs. Seiler. She was a NICU. She had been a NICU nurse for like 20 years. So I remember her showing us the pictures of Coney Island and the babies at Luna Park. So I was like, oh my gosh. So it was, but Luna Park was really good. But I think I liked War Librarian better, like the stories in War Librarian. But
so good.
So good. Just one of those that I could like turn off my brain and like forget where I was and just be completely in the world that she created. It was so good. Yeah.
I learned things about the history of my profession as a librarian that I didn't know. I didn't realize that ALA had supported wartime efforts and that they were like actually overseas. And I mean, it's a little self-righteous of us librarians to be like, we're going to we're going to make peace for people by giving them books. That's a little self-righteous. Like,
yeah.
You know, but it's really cool that they did that.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to talk to her about it because we had the authors fill out like a questionnaire of like, what are some things you want to talk about? And she wanted to talk about the War Librarian, and she put in like parentheses that it's also timely because book banning is such on the rise right now. And that's a big part of that book. And I'm so excited to talk to her about that because she's actually an elementary school teacher.
Yes.
That's her day job.
I found that on her Instagram. I was like, oh,
she had pictures with Pigeon. Yeah. And I was like, oh, Mr. Mo is my favorite. So, anyway, I'm excited to meet her because I want to talk to her about this history and how she came about it and talk about that book banning and like how we're seeing this happen again. So I'm a little,
for sure.
I'm a little, coffee today.
You're all right.
It's anyone that lives in coastal Virginia, you can attest to the fact that we have the worst pollen. My allergies have never been this bad before. I've had allergies everywhere I've lived. I've had issues with it. I didn't have issues in England, mostly because it just rained like the whole time I was there. But Virginia is the worst. It's really bad here.
Do you eat local honey?
So I did last year and I had a better time of it. But because of my sugar issues, I didn't want to just be downing.
Oh, yeah.
Spoonfuls.
Reasonable.
But you had told me to try that last year, and I was like, I just don't think that's a good idea for this year because...
Yeah, maybe not do that with your glucose.
Yeah. My sugar levels have been good, but I still don't want to risk it. All right.
Don't jack it up. Just take some Claritin, boo-boo.
This is the plan. Okay, so we are going to talk about this book today, The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. I did look up how you say her name. She has it on her website. It's Poston, like Post-it, but with an O-N. I picked this book because I have read her series Once Upon a Con, which is a YA series, which is a fabulous YA series. It's also very inclusive. There's LGBTQ characters. There's characters of color. It's a really good, like, geeky romance series.
How many books is it?
3. So the first one is Geekarella, which is Cinderella.
I've heard of Geekarella.
Oh, it's really
I didn't
good.
realize. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I read that one in a day. Like, we were on vacation and I just started it and read the whole thing. Then the second one is, I can't remember what it's called, but it's like the Prince and the Pauper kind of story.
Oh, okay.
Like a fan switches roles with the starlet because they sort of look alike. And then the third one is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and I actually haven't read that one yet, even though that's my
Okay.
favorite Disney story. But um,
Yeah.
anyway, so when I saw her name on a book, and I thought this cover looked cool, and I don't love paranormal romance. I mean, Twilight up there. I love Twilight. And I've read a lot of paranormal romance that I do like, but it isn't my go-to. I've never read a ghost romance, so I was like a little, what's it going to be like? But I definitely thought this book would be something different than it was. So, how about a synopsis?
I've never.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
I've never read paranormal romance. I didn't even know like it was a thing until I picked up this book, and then I had to like read about what paranormal romance was, and I was like, "Oh, there literally is a peg for every hole in this literary world."
But you've read Twilight.
Like, see, and I didn't think of that as like paranormal. I don't know, like vampires, like that's just, I don't know. It didn't register that that was paranormal. Yeah, and I've read, I guess like the more that I think about it, I've read several things that would be considered paranormal, but
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
Go ahead with the synopsis.
Okay.
I'm anxious to get to these questions. I have lots of words.
Question 2.
Yeah.
You texted me
Yeah,
yesterday.
question 2.
You texted me yesterday. It just said question 2 with exclamation points. I was like, I don't know. All right. Synopsis. Florence Day has given up on love after her long-term live-in boyfriend completely steals all her stories of her life and published them in a book that he wrote. Asshole. The problem with giving up on love is that's Florence's job. Florence is a ghostwriter for a hella famous romance novelist, and she is on a deadline. When she meets with her new editor, Ben Andor, and asks for an extension armed only with a welcome to the team cactus, she receives a pretty prickly response. This is what I did there. Cactus prickly.
I got that. Yeah. That was a good one. That was very punny.
Later that night, while out with her roommate and best friend Rose, she runs into both her ex and her editor. While running away from said ex, she runs into Ben and they make out, because of course they do. Why wouldn't you make out in a dark alley with your editor that you only just met that morning?
Mid-kiss. That you very awkwardly gave a cactus to.
Right.
Yeah.
Mid-kiss, Florence receives a call that the worst has happened. Her beloved father has died suddenly. Florence is forced to go home to her small town where her family owns the funeral home, and she once solved a mystery with the help of a ghost. Oh yeah, Florence sees dead people. Just like her dad did. The book takes a really weird turn, because that wasn't already weird enough, when Florence opens the door to her family's funeral home to reveal the ghost of none other than her editor and most recent makeout partner, Ben Andor. Florence must help Ben solve whatever is keeping him from eternal rest, survive her family and small town gossip, and grieve her father she so deeply loved. The big question she seems to have is, why the hell is Ghost Ben here? Why does he appear to be changing and in pain? And why is he disappearing to who knows where? Oh, and also, can she really have true love forever with a ghost who can't touch her? That's this book.
Question number 2. Yeah.
You want to start with number 1?
Go ahead. Lay it on me.
So first, I already said this, but I picked this book because Ashley Poston wrote the Once Upon a Con series. I really liked that. I saw the cover at work. It was on the new book section, like in the summer, I think. And I was like, oh, this would be probably good. And this would be a good pod book. So I actually bought the book, and it's been in my TBR since then. So what did you think of this book and Ashley Poston's writing style?
So this is my first introduction with her. I haven't read anything. I've heard of Geekarella, but I've never read anything. It was okay. Like, I feel like we could have wrapped it up sooner.
Yeah.
How many pages is it? It's like just under, 344. I think this story could have been told in about 200 pages.
Yeah.
It was a relatively quick read. It took me like 2 days. But it was a little bit longer for me just because I was I was involved in another book that I am really enjoying, and I
Listen
wanted
to
to read
her
that
talk
one.
about how it took her so long because it was 2 days.
Yeah. But I think overall, and we've talked about this before when we talked about Bridgerton, like if you're here for romance,
Yeah.
then you're here for romance. I don't feel like this book
Mm-mm.
fell into that. Like with Bridgerton, if you want bodice ripper, brushing of the hands, all of that, Bridgerton delivered.
Yeah.
This book, I don't think was in the same category, even though they were both considered romance. Like, it just that I didn't get the same like
Yeah.
heaving bosoms thing with this one as I did with Bridgerton. So
I actually think that the sexiest part of this book when Ghost Ben was describing to her
yeah,
what he wanted to do to her.
yeah, like
Not
200 pages in.
not
Yeah,
spoiler, when they actually kiss. Like to me, I was just
right.
like, by that point. I thought the beginning was really funny. I was literally laughing out loud at work while I was reading
Yeah,
it. And I thought the
yeah.
ending, although predictable, it gave me the satisfaction that I was looking for. Like that's obviously the
Hmm.
happy ending that you come to romances for. But the middle really
Yeah.
drug on, and that was
So
disappointing.
long. So
Yeah,
long.
for
Yeah.
sure. For sure.
And I have to agree, like when you texted me and you're like, I'm not 100% on board, or, I was like, oh, because I thought the beginning was funny. I loved the
Mm-hmm.
introduction of the characters. I loved meeting the family
Mm-hmm.
and learning like all of that. But then I was like, oh, okay, I see where she's like not feeling this because it just
Yeah.
took forever. Like, let's go. Like, go. Yeah.
Yeah. And I felt like Florence started out as this one, as a person that, like, I felt like I knew her as a character. And then I felt
Mm-hmm.
like that she didn't end up living up to what that character was. She went from being like a fairly confident person to like not. And maybe that has to do with
Yeah.
like you can't ever go home, right? So when you
Yeah.
do, like I feel like that when I come back to the field, I'm like a little kid
Yeah.
again, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know if the writing was it wasn't up to the caliber of Once Upon a Con. And I don't know
Yeah.
if that's because this is the first time that she's written an adult book.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it's because I'm comparing this to like other books that I'm, like smutty books that I read regularly.
Mm-hmm.
Like this one, I'm currently reading the second Olivia Dade book, All the Feels.
Yeah.
Like if I find it in the romance section and it's closed door, it doesn't belong there. Like
Right. Yeah.
it's a romantic story. It's not a romance novel.
Agreed. Yeah. Yep. And just put it, yeah. It don't need to have the little heart. Like our library does the little
Yeah.
hearts and the little dragons for fantasies and the little spaceship for sci-fi. I'd have just left it blank.
We do
Yeah.
too. Probably they look
So,
exactly the same because we all pretty much use the same vendor.
see, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
there's
did have
like
to go
one,
to
sorry.
Go ahead. No, go
There's
ahead.
like really one vendor for like library supplies, and they are hella expensive because you can charge whatever they
Because it's just
want.
them. Yeah. I did have to go. So the county that I live in has like 6 libraries,
Mm-hmm.
and we always go to the main one. One, because it's the closest.
Mm-hmm.
2, because I love the librarians there. That's where we took the girls. Like their children's librarian, his name is Mr. George. I literally follow his Facebook page. I love Mr. George. Like
Shout out to
he is
Mr.
such
George.
huge shout out to Mr. George. Like we used to fangirl at story time. So
Mm-hmm.
he was behind me at CVS and I like turned around and I was like, "Are you Mr. George?" And he was like, "Yes." And I'm like, "My kids are teenagers, but we used to come like every Wednesday to story time and we love you." And he was like, "Thanks." I'm like, "Please don't be picking up a prescription for like syphilis or something because like we just love Mr. George."
Oh
But
my gosh.
anywho, yeah. So, anywho, so all these libraries, we normally go the big one. This one was at the brand new one, like brand spanking new. They did the ribbon cutting like last week. I was so disappointed in the new library.
No.
It was, I know. So it's 2 stories. It's like, it's got a ton of light in it, but it is arranged so horribly. And I was like, I am so disappointed. Like, I'm so glad it's not our main library, but
Yeah.
I was like,
So I feel
dang
like
it.
that happens so much because the people that know what the library needs are not the people that do the money.
Oh,
So,
no. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
a library where I worked previously, we didn't even have programming space at all. At
Yeah,
all.
there was none there. Like, I couldn't see, like, where they would have story
Yep.
time or,
We just
like, a
had to do it
teen
in the
area.
out and
Yeah.
everything. And additionally, there was no second exit from the children's room, which is a huge
Mm,
safety issue. So we had
yeah.
like we had like a whole bunch of like, active shooter training. And I was
Yeah.
like, so do like the kids and I just die in the kids' room?
Yeah.
Since there's no way out, do we just die? So
Yeah.
they like
We're just
looked at
stuck
trying
here.
to have a second door put in, but like an exterior door would have been $10,000 because they would have to cut a hole in the brick. So it would have been cheaper to do
Ain't
it.
nobody, no library is going to have that money.
No,
They're not going to be like, oh, sure, for a door.
right,
Yeah.
and it would be cheaper to do an interior one that would have gone into a different part of the library, but it never has happened. So there's still just one exit. Now the library
That's
where I work
unfortunate.
now, the children's room has two exits. We have
Yeah.
there's a back exit that's through my office. So
Yeah. Our main library that we go and that I took the kids to, the children's section is huge. It's
uh-huh.
probably one of the biggest that I've ever seen. It's got like a play area and then a ton of books and space. And then they have a whole program room that's
Yeah.
right off the children's, and it's got two entrances. So you can do adult programs, like you can come in from the lobby
Uh-huh.
or you can come in through the children's
I
section.
love
And
that.
there's like projection screens and all kinds of stuff. Like do genuinely like just adore our library.
That's
It's
awesome.
and all of our librarians and the staff and everything there. They're great. So
I
okay,
like
sorry.
I like the space where I'm working now. I like the library where I'm working now, but it does have issues. I mean, every library does.
Every job has
Our
issues. Yeah.
ceilings are too high, and so the kids, when they scream in the kids department, because they do, you can hear it
Mm-hmm.
throughout the whole library, because even though our ceilings are really high, our walls and doors don't go up all the way.
Yeah.
So you can just hear the kids everywhere. But we're actually getting an expansion that's supposed to start at the end of summer reading, and they're putting programming space inside our room, and my space is doubling. It's going to be awesome. I know. I'm
Fun.
so excited. My department's worked really hard. We've seen so many people come in for programming, and we are the second busiest library in our system, second only to our downtown location, which, I mean, it's a massive library. So us
I love
being
that.
second when we're
Yay.
like half the size, it's like crazy. All
That's
right.
great.
So back to the book.
Sorry. Yeah.
As Molly and I always say, we're 30 minutes in and we haven't done anything.
We talked about one thing, and we've done the synopsis and we've talked to the first question.
Yeah. So here's the second question. All right. So what the fuck is going on in this book?
What the fuck is this book? Like, too many things. Like, pick a lane. So, my biggest beef, I think, I have a couple beefs.
Mm-hmm. You
First
have
and
your bell?
foremost,
I
okay,
can ring for you.
I do. No.
Yes.
Okay. So, first bell ringer. Not everybody moves to New York City
Mm-hmm.
from a small town.
Yes.
Some
Thank
of us
you.
go from a small town to a comparable town. And guess what? We're still happy.
Yeah.
And we still have a fulfilled life.
Right.
And we still have to go back home.
Right.
And the things that we go to back home are still the shit we have to go to back home.
Yeah.
You know exactly what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. Like, not everybody moves to New York City
Right.
and has these publishing careers. Like, sometimes we just move a little bit away, but you still have the back home issues. Like, back home issues are back home
Yeah.
issues. Everybody has those in their life. Just because you moved to New York and you wear all black and you think you're amazing and you drink $40 cocktails,
Right.
everybody has back home issues.
Right.
Like, seriously. So that's my first bell ringer. My next one, this is a
Lots of bell rings.
lots of bells. I love diversity and inclusion. That is a big proponent for me. I love hearing about different characters. I love seeing different characters in the book. But there has to be a reason that they're there.
Yeah.
Like,
not just in the
don't just
background,
randomly
not to have your token white kid or black kid. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, why do you have the token non-binary innkeeper?
Yeah.
What is that person bringing to that story?
Yeah.
Because it really just feels fake and forced. Like,
Yeah.
I want to see inclusion because those people are important to our everyday life.
Right.
So they need to be important to our everyday stories. Like
Yeah.
if you're just going to have a story, just have a story. Like don't
Right.
just randomly include Dana because Dana's non-binary and uses they them pronouns.
Right.
Like I was like, this was dumb.
I felt like the
So,
reason that they were included was because they married her high school sweetheart, and so it was supposed to be like
Right.
that tie to her life, but they didn't really get to do anything that mattered.
No.
There were so many
Make rum and
opportunities
cokes.
too.
Yeah.
And
yes.
yeah, and I think it was also to show us that this town is like accepting of everyone. I mean,
except her that could talk to the ghost.
Right.
She's the only one that they ran out.
Right.
Like they're accepting of the non-binary person, they're accepting of her gay brother and his partner, but she's the black sheep.
And I kind of got that Elvis might have been gay too. Like he's like a gay Elvis impersonator. I don't know if that was
Elviso. Yeah, that was funny. But yeah, that was my beef. Was like I'm all for diversity and inclusion, but make their stories matter.
Right.
Like don't just have them there because they're there.
Right.
Because then it feels very like Disney. Oh, token black friend kind of thing.
Right.
So yeah.
Right. It's like the books that I always weed from collections where it's like, we need to make sure we put a black kid on every so many pages. We need to put a wheelchair here. And those kids don't actually have anything to do with the story. Like, it's great to have representation, but like, make those characters matter. Give them a life.
Because they are a part of our lives and a part of their lives, and they are main characters on their own too. Like my kids are always be like, "Oh, I'm having a main character moment." Mm-hmm. Yeah, everybody's their own main character, but like they have to have some value too, or they are just like, what is it, the non NPC or whatever,
the NPC, non-playable character.
That's what those characters felt like to me, and I was like, it literally made no difference on this story.
I agree.
For those NPCs.
I agree. Yeah. And so one of my passions as a children's librarian is inclusive books. Kids need to see themselves in books. And one of the things we talk about is like mirrors. Kids need to see themselves in the books. But it is equally important to me that kids that are cisgender and straight and white and male see people of color, non-binary, families that are different than theirs, and that those characters are not doing things that we stereotypically associate with them. So the black kids don't just need to play basketball. Why can't the black kids be on the academic bowl team? Why is that such a weird concept? It shouldn't be.
Maybe an Asian kid can play basketball.
Right.
Instead of being on the academic bowl team.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe there's a gay football player not in the theater group.
Right.
Like, this is life.
Right.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we have a set of gay parents who volunteer for PTO.
Right.
Because that's what they do.
Right.
Maybe there's a set of lesbian moms who are pissed off about their taxes because that's life.
That's normal.
Like, that's normal. Like, we don't have to exactly. Like, we don't have to make it just to have them there. Like, it's just
Yeah. So I felt like the concept of this book was like so clever. I just don't think the execution was there. Like, to me, the idea that this family is sort of like the Addams family of this small town in the South, and she's like the kooky Wednesday Addams type that like communes with ghosts, like, and she still sees them.
But then her sister's the goth. Like, that just pissed me off.
Right.
Like, don't make her the goth then if she's not the one seeing the ghosts. So,
and she doesn't want to see them anymore. Like, after she was made fun of and kind of bullied out of town, like, she even sees them in New York City and she doesn't engage with them anymore.
See, and that's just a shame. Like, if you have that spiritual plane open and like people are coming to you, it is your duty to like guide people and help them. Like, don't be that person that shuts that down. That's not cool. Like,
yeah, I think that my issue with like books with ghosts is that I don't really believe in ghosts. So I find them more far-fetched than something like vampires. I don't believe in vampires either. I think that there are spiritual beings, but I don't think that what I personally believe is that when you die, there is an afterlife, and you don't linger anywhere. You go to that afterlife. So for me, again, spoiler, it didn't feel like, oh, of course he's still alive. Like, I was like, yeah, because he was still hanging on. Like, there were plenty of signs.
Yeah. So I think I have to, like, respectfully fuck you.
Oh! I don't know that you can. I don't know that you can.
You. So I have been a nurse 21 years. Okay, 21 years. 2002 is when I graduated with my nursing degree. I have been with a lot of people when they have died. You can sense someone's being, or I can. I don't know if everybody can. My dad can. We've talked about it. And I've always been able to tell, like, patients that have been comatose or patients that are getting close when they are gone and when it is just their shell. So I don't know if that's, I don't think of it as ghost. I think of it as a spiritual being like that. But I have felt patients still there and waiting for something, where, for, you know, their physical being has passed. Their heart has stopped, their breathing has stopped, we have declared time of death, and they are still there. They are waiting for somebody or something, and I have felt them leave, and it's never been uncomfortable for me. I've never felt like tense or like, oh my god, there's the boogeyman. Like, it's never been like that. When my grandfather's second wife died, like, we were sitting there with my mom, and I was like, oh, she's getting ready to go. And my mom's like, what are you talking about? I was like, she's going to go. Like, I can feel it. Just the whole, it just changes. Like, the energy in the room changes. And I said, oh, okay, she's gone. And then she died. Like, it wasn't bad. It just was. It's just what it is. So I think, like, I don't think there's just, like, I don't think it's a black and white. I don't think it's a curtain that you're either in front of or behind. You will be eventually. And some people do need more time to work through it. And honestly, all the deaths that I've experienced have been in a hospital. Like, I've never been with somebody in a home when they've passed away or anything like that. But I don't think it's a front stage, backstage thing. So
well,
respectfully,
I am okay with disagreeing with you on that. It doesn't, I am not offended. That was the most respectful fuck you ever.
Respectfully,
fuck you.
Fuck you.
Yeah, I mean, I have just always felt that way, but I do believe in spiritual beings. Like, I 100% believe in that. And my husband actually sees spiritual beings and auras, and he's been able to be like, like, we have a mutual friend that he's like, hey, tell me when she announces that she's pregnant. I was like, she's not pregnant. They're not pregnant. I don't even think they're trying again. And then, like, a month later, she found out she was pregnant. And I was like, how did you know? And he's like, I saw the second spirit in her. I knew.
Open and receptive to it, too. Yeah.
So, I mean, I hope he doesn't mind me sharing that. I don't know.
That's super cool. I would fist bump him.
I think it's really cool. We've had a lot of conversations about it. So,
well, and I think it just, like, it's not just, so there's a difference between religion and spirituality. I think you and I have talked about that, and we both, and I think it is on a completely different plane too, but I think it emphasizes your connection to your religious being. Like, when you have that faith and you have that comfort, knowing then that on the spiritual plane, you can help patients go to, or people go to their next plane, spiritually and religiously. So, yeah.
Well, that did not really answer the question about what the fuck is this book.
What the fuck is this book, though?
I don't know. I do think that it started out to be one thing and then didn't end up being that. I think she had this concept for this, like, weird, kooky family, and there was going to be a ghost guy who wasn't a ghost guy. But it sort of reminded me of, like, While You've Been Sleeping, even though she wasn't, like, going and visiting him in a coma. It was like, you barely know this guy and you are in love with him and he's a ghost. Like,
I had a total beef with that at the end when they were like, "I love you."
Mhm.
And she even says it. She doesn't know his favorite color. She
Right.
doesn't know his favorite food. Like, you can't, like, that's such bullshit. Like, it was like, oh, we're getting towards the end, page count. Let's wrap this up and make it all a happy ending because that's what everybody came for. And it was just a throwaway.
Although I do
So,
watch Love is Blind, which is pretty much the same thing. We don't know anything about each other, but we're in love. You know what bothered me about the end? What really got this for me? I absolutely hated that he went with her to go back to the wedding.
just,
Like, it's
you
just,
just spent like a week in a coma. You're just now getting back to work.
they
And you're just
haven't
going to be
actually
like, oh,
seen each
yeah,
other in
let's,
person for like a couple months at that point, and it's like,
yeah,
we love each other. We're just gonna go to the wedding together. No.
yeah.
Did you ever watch How I
NBD.
Met Your
Yeah,
Mother? Did you watch How I Met Your Mother?
yeah.
So,
Bits and pieces of it.
so
Yeah.
there's an episode where Lily gets really mad about Ted bringing random girls to like big events because
Mm-hmm.
she makes scrapbooks, and then she's like, who's this bitch? Like, why is this bitch
Yeah.
included? Like, to me, they have been dating a hot second, and he's showing up at her brother's wedding. In the end, I'm gonna be like, who's this bitch? Like, why you bring
Right?
him? Like, he doesn't get to be in the family photos. Like,
And there is like no polite way to say, could you not be in the picture?
right.
Like,
There's no
none.
way.
There is no polite way to say that.
No, because
None.
somebody's getting
Yeah.
offended and somebody's
Uh-huh.
getting feelings hurt. Like, honestly,
Yep.
I would, if I were the person, I would be like, no, I don't want to be included.
Yeah. I'll
Because,
just stay over here and hold drinks.
yeah,
Yeah.
what can I do
Yeah.
that I'm not featured? Like,
In the photo.
how can I assist? Because I don't want, and and even that, I'm not saying that to be like offensive to the person that I'm like dating, but like, what if we don't work out? Like,
Right. Yeah. Then I'm in your brother's weddings
yeah,
pictures.
gross.
And can we talk about the fact that they had a wedding at a funeral home?
Yeah, what the fuck?
What the actual fuck? Like, there's no,
No.
there's no coming back from that. I was just
No.
like, I can't believe this is.
They had
yeah,
all
so.
that beautiful land outside too that they talk about.
Right?
Why didn't they do it out there?
It's just weird.
They had
just
a whole
like
second
more,
house.
like,
They didn't have to do it at the funeral home. What the hell?
right. They didn't even live there.
They
And
could have
like,
done it at the bed and breakfast where she was staying.
right. With the weird non-binary character who was just there.
Who was
They
just
could have
there.
integrated that whole story.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And had rum and coke.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Same page. Same page.
Same page.
Okay, so Florence is experiencing an absolutely devastating time in her life. Her love life has been shattered. Her ability to write has shattered her ability to write, and her father's death has shattered the rest of her. But then there is Ben. So, is Ben's presence a help or a burden to Florence's grief?
I think it's a help. I think, like, if not, she would have been just like rolling along
Yeah.
on her own. She, I wish that they would have fleshed out more the story between her and her sister.
Yeah.
Because
Either of her
like,
siblings would have been nice.
either of her siblings would have been nice. Yeah, but like, why is your sister so pissed at you? Just because you moved away and then she had to fight your battles, or was there more? And like, why are you not mourning with that person who had a very similar relationship to your dad? Like, when something like, when my father-in-law passed away, my husband and his one sister have not like bonded for a long time, but they were able to go back to that because they had that as a youth. So like, why would you go to some rando Ben to get you through that and not your sister? But then that was the character building that the author decided to go with. So yeah,
I feel like he was a distraction to that story. And maybe that is what her grief needed, was a distraction, because we all grieve in different ways. But the story of this family has nothing to do with the story of Ben the ghost.
None.
And it felt very forced to try to make these stories work together, because they just don't work together. They don't.
Right.
You could have had a story about this family that is the, patriarch. Everyone loves him. He's beloved by the community, and he dies. You could have had that story, and that is women's fiction, for lack of a better term. I don't really like that term, but we'll just call it that. Then you could have a story with a ghost who you fall in love with. But putting them together just didn't work.
Two separate stories. Yeah.
Two separate stories.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is the point that Molly would insert, but the editor. But I'm going to say this to you, Molly, because I know you're listening, because I'm making you listen to this episode before it goes live. It's not always the editor that's the problem.
Sometimes it's just the story.
It's just the story.
The whole thing is just shit. Sometimes it's not the editor.
Right.
So.
Right.
Sometimes and in this case, like, the editor is Ben, and he's part of the problem. So, right. Again, yeah.
So sometimes the editor is just like, I don't fucking know. Just publish it.
Just print it. Yeah. Like, is there typos or commas where they're supposed to be? Fuck it. Get it to print. I'm done.
And this was actually a Good Morning America book club book. I didn't even know they had I didn't even know they had a book club. So.
I watched the first 3 minutes of Good Morning America just to get the headlines, and then I switched because I can't stand the drivel sometimes.
Yeah.
So
I didn't even know they had a book club. So, I mean, All right, so Florence has a younger brother and a younger sister. So what did you think about the whole family vibe? I know that you said that you wanted more with the relationships.
I did, for sure. I think families, especially families in grief, give you a whole different dynamic to every story. And I really felt like the author did not do justice to the roles and to the relationships within that family.
Yeah.
Like, the dad obviously was very proud of Florence, and but he was also very proud of his other kids too.
Right.
Like Alice, she went and has a forensic degree and all of that, and they just kind of glossed over it, and then they completely glossed over the brother, and I can't think of his name.
I don't remember.
Carver. But no, was that the?
I'll try to look.
See, and that's another beef I have. There was 15 different characters, the
Carver.
caretaker, Carver, but Carver had this big tech degree, and then I felt like the guy who ran the inn, or not the inn, ran the funeral home or something, Seaburn, who was the mayor dogs.
Yeah, he ran the graveyard.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the
all these extra characters. I was who is this now?
The mayor.
Yeah, elected twice. Yeah. So
I just feel like there was two different stories here, and she didn't know how to reconcile them in her mind.
Yeah. And I wanted more of the family. I wanted more relationships between the brothers and the sisters, and them as a relationship dealing with the grief of their father dying. Very suddenly dying, too. He wasn't sick,
But he didn't have the best health conscious life, because he was a smoker and a heavy drinker, and so I mean, he was
stressful job,
right?
So
this book either needed to be set in New York City, and it was a love story like One Last Stop, although no sex on a subway, because I can't.
Never. Not enough Purell. Yeah.
Or it's a small town romance where the girl comes home and it's like a Hollywood or Hallmark movie. But it can't be both.
Pick a lane.
Can't be both.
Pick a lane. Yeah.
Can't be both. All right. Florence's dad left a really strange list for his funeral. Florence is determined to get everything he wanted by herself. What do you think about the entire town bringing flowers to the funeral?
So I loved that. That was the one part of the list that I actually liked, because people don't, in smaller towns, they don't realize how impactful someone like the mortician is. And we live in a relatively small town, closer adjacent to a little bit of a bigger town, but the family that owns one of the bigger mortuaries, that it's a very common name around here, so all the Rodmans, all the Snyders, so that's integral for that community to grieve the loss of this man that has probably touched all of their lives. Everybody has somebody that's died, and when the mom said, no, we're doing these two funerals before we do dad's, because it was what this family needed in their grief. So then it was nice for the community to come back and be like, now we're sharing your grief and we're helping you with this. I did like that part. The crows.
Yeah, they were supposed to
understand the
ghosts.
Significance. She can see the ghosts. She can talk to the ghosts. Why would they be there in crow form? I was like, this is So dumb.
I don't
Like,
know.
why are we? Yeah.
I didn't get it either. I kept thinking about the small town that we're from in Ohio.
Mhm.
There are like 2 major funeral homes that I can think of.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And one of them, the one that's downtown, that they have the like the
Mhm.
lions heads and things. Do you know what I'm
Yep.
talking about? I cannot think for the life of me
Mhm.
what it's called. They
Yeah.
have buried like every person that I've ever known, like everyone in my
Yeah.
family, like almost every funeral
Us
I've
too.
been to. That's where we've gone, and
Yep.
I can remember very clearly, and I kept like thinking about this while I was reading this book, because this is my relationship to a funeral home and a funeral director. The same people, it's the same family that's done it, and people marry
Mhm.
in, but they stay and continue to do
Mhm.
this work. And I mean,
Mhm.
I think people think it's creepy, and I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I do think it's like a creepy profession, but it's such a needed one. And what you
Mhm.
really need is someone that like can care for you in your grief and knows like these are the things that need to be done, because
Yep.
you don't have the mindset to do that. So
Yep.
because they've done all the funerals, they did my grandmother's funeral. And she
Mhm.
died rather suddenly. And it was devastating for me. And I didn't really get to be part of the process of planning her funeral, but it was the same
Mhm.
people that were there when my grandfather passed away a few years
Mhm.
later. And they came to the home because he died. He was on hospice at home and died at home.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
they came to like retrieve his body and all those things. And like just seeing them again was one very hard, because then I'm taken back
Mhm.
to like other people dying, particularly my grandmother.
Mhm.
But it was also almost relief, because I knew
Mhm.
these people know how to care for our family.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so, and like we did grow up in a small town. I mean, I know that you live in a smaller town now, but relatively, we grew
Yeah.
up in a small town. We're from Ohio.
Mhm.
So, I mean, every town there is a small town except for like Columbus and Cleveland and Cincinnati.
Right.
So,
Everything else in
everything
between.
else
Yeah.
is small. But yeah,
Yeah.
so I could picture this funeral home very well, because that
Yeah.
was my attachment. Like you do want
Same.
those same people to handle all of
Yeah.
your loved ones after they've passed. So yeah,
Agreed. And it's kind of like it's comfort in knowing that the details are going to be taken care of
yeah,
because it's somebody who does it every day. Like
yeah,
that's why, yeah, that I thought the same thing about the family too.
yeah.
So,
And my
yeah.
grandparents were those like plan ahead types, so they already had everything
Yeah.
planned out, much like her dad did.
Yeah.
They already had their plots purchased and their headstones purchased. Although Mansfield Cemetery had changed some rules, so we had to do some changing out, and but it was pretty much the same. Um,
Yeah.
and my grandfather really wanted to have like military rites at his burial.
Mhm.
And we
Yeah.
had no idea how to do any of that, and they were just like, oh no, we know who to contact, don't worry about it, we've got
Yep.
it.
Yep.
And they were just
Yep. That's
there.
for Steve's dad.
Yeah.
Yep.
What'd you say?
When Steve's dad passed away, they had pre-planned their funeral.
Yeah.
His mother, his mom's still living. But it took us like 20
Yeah.
minutes to like he like literally went through and confirmed everything, and we were like, okay, well, what about like the people that have played taps? And he's like, oh, we'll take care of that. We have like a list of
Yeah.
people that we call, and it's like they have the ones that served in Vietnam that'll do it. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
because like that was a big component that we wanted.
Right.
So yeah, it
Yeah.
was.
Which,
But
by the
that's
way,
but that's their job,
right.
like
Right.
to do that.
Right.
So yeah,
It is. But it doesn't mean you
yeah,
can't appreciate it. Like it's my job to find kids books,
true.
but I still love it when they appreciate that I do.
Amen.
I
Amen.
mean,
Yeah.
you have the life-saving job, which is like obviously more important, but I'm not going to be so self-righteous to be like books are going to save lives, but they might make lives better.
Listen, nobody, no physician, no nurse, nobody in healthcare ever got to where they are without reading a book.
Well,
And if a
unless they
librarian hadn't been
cheated.
there, still, unless they, I mean, go Florida, get your nursing license off the internet. But
Oh, they
still,
have
they
that?
had to read something. Girl, Google that. Anywho, yeah.
Well, Florida is currently allowing military spouses to be teachers. They don't have to have any sort of. I can't. All right. So,
We say in the Alexander house, Florida man, whenever somebody does something
given
real
that my
stupid.
husband is from Florida, we have lots of
Oh, buddy.
conversations about Florida.
I love that. I didn't realize that.
Well, he was born in Texas, and then he moved to Florida when he was 9. His father is a geologist, and he went to study sinkholes instead of oil. So he did oil in
Well,
Texas and sinkholes in Florida, and yeah. So he moved with
I feel like Tom is the anti-Florida man, though. I feel like he's very logical. So, yeah.
Yes, he is. He is so logical that we've had arguments in which I go, I can't fight with you if you're going to be so rational. He's like,
exactly.
I don't know what to do. So Ben is dead, or he might be dead. Were you surprised at the real reveal that he was actually in a coma?
Nope. So when she started talking about how he was changing
Mm-hmm.
and his like coat was mussed up and his hair was messed up, I was like, oh, he ain't dead.
Yeah.
And then when he started disappearing, I was like, yeah, he's having like he's in the ICU somewhere. And so then as soon as I read that, I like flipped back in the book to where Rose told her that he was hit by a car. And I was like, nowhere in there did she say he died.
Right.
She just said he was hit by a car.
Right.
So I was like, he's not dead.
Right.
Yeah.
So have you ever seen the movie The Rear Window or the movie A Beautiful Mind? Either of those.
I've seen A Beautiful Mind, but it's been a long time ago.
Okay, so
and I've never seen Rear Window.
Okay, so in both of those movies, the ghosts, in one it's a ghost, and in one it's figments of his schizophrenia. They don't change. They don't get older. They don't change clothes.
Mm-mm.
Nothing about them changes. So when he started changing, I was like, this guy is not a ghost. He's in ICU. I figured he was in a coma too. I figured that out pretty early on, actually. And you and Molly both texted me when you found out that he was a ghost, and were like, he's dead? Both of you did. And I was just like, he's not dead.
He's not dead. Dead. My oldest is like super fashionista, and she always says, if I'm gonna die, this is what I'm,
these are my ghost clothes
wear for the rest of my life. Exactly. She's like, I'm not gonna go in my ghost clothes and like my cozy pants and my hoodie. Like, I'm not leaving this house.
That's a solid decision.
Yep. So she's ready for her ghost clothes at any moment's notice. Yeah.
That's hilarious. How do you feel about the reveal that Ben remembered his time with Florence while he was in a coma? They were having this he was actually happening. It was actually happening, even though it was in a coma.
I'm glad he did, because I got a little pissy when the email exchange occurred. I was like, what the fuck? You don't remember that?
Right.
Because I've had patients in the ICU wake up and say, I don't remember everything, but I remember hearing your voice.
Yeah.
I remember my mom sitting there. So like the consciousness is still there. So yeah.
No, I 100% believe that people who are in comas, who are unconscious, that they can hear and sense what's happening around them. And
I would always talk to my patients like that were sedated or whatever. I would always be like, okay, we're going to turn you, or okay, you're going to feel me touching you. Like, because I wouldn't want to be in this dark space and not hear somebody talk to me. So, yeah.
And whether they remember all of it or not, I mean, you don't remember all of your dreams. So, but listen, if it's scientifically proven that plants grow better because they're talked to, then humans can definitely hear what's happening when they're in comas.
Word.
They're fucking plants.
100. They're plans.
That was all the questions I have. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
I gave it 3 on Goodreads. What did you give it? I think what I see.
On I thought you gave it 4.
No, I went back in and revised it because like the more that I sat on it. So I am working on my Goodreads evaluations. I have a really hard time rating people low. Because I feel like you did put yours are kind of savage. So but
yes,
you're a librarian. You're allowed to be. Yeah, you're allowed to be like, this was shit. I am always like, but you tried so hard. Like I know you worked on this book for like a while.
Yeah.
And like somebody has enough faith in you to publish it. And apparently, Good Morning America liked it. So, but I'm like, okay, you can't Like, you can't be like that because not every book is good. There are some real shit books out there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I also gave it a 3 out of 5. For me,
Yeah.
it was the beginning and the end that made it. I could have just done without the middle. The middle was 2 different stories.
Yep. Yeah.
And I do not like closed door romances. Like, if I'm reading closed door romance, it needs to be YA. Like, adult books should be, there should be
Spicy.
large penises that are inexplicably large. Exactly. There should be tiny girls for some reason. I'm okay with the girls being plus size, but apparently they have to have inexplicably large penises.
All the time.
All the time.
It always has to be like a Coke can.
Like,
so,
why can't we just have normal penises in these books? Like,
normalize normal penises.
Right.
Normalize normal penises.
Right.
Yeah.
They're fine, okay? We don't need these big penises that don't fit. Like, it's fine.
Have you seen the TikTok where the chick actually measures like 12 inches?
No. Oh my gosh.
She's like, oh my gosh, let me see. I don't have a tape measure. I don't have a ruler or anything.
Oh, I do.
Yeah, like literally measure 12 inches right now while we're sitting here.
Oh, I thought I did. I'm at my crafting desk, so you would think I would. Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
All right, here. So my paper trimmer is...
Yeah.
So 12 inches is from here to here.
Yeah. Yeah. Think about that for a minute, ladies. Yeah.
I don't know why you would want that.
No. Like, logistically, it just... Yeah.
It doesn't sound like it would be satisfying. It sounds like it would hurt.
It's not how this works. That's not how any of this works.
I would be like, I see your 12 inches and I raise you. We're just going to get a hand job.
You're going to be like, can you just...
My vagina says
you.
no. And on that note, can I share with everybody what the rest of this month is going to look like?
Yes, please.
So because Molly is sick, we're having to switch some things around because we have reading that we have to finish before we go to the con because we want to respect the authors that are giving us their time. So next week, it will be a shortened episode. I assume it will be short. I don't know how long my husband and I can talk, really. In which Tom is going to give you his take on the book that we covered last week, which is The Nature of Witches. And then we're going to talk about our lives. And I don't really know what we're going to talk about, to be honest. It's basically going to be banter of husband and wife. And
I love this.
My husband's really great. We have a lot of fun together, so you'll get to see the dynamic. And we actually made some TikTok videos yesterday together, so there'll be some of that'll come out at the same time.
Fun.
Yeah, he's pretty great. He's very handsome. If he could get rid of his beard, I would be much happier. But just it's too long. It goes down to his belly button. It goes down.
He's one step from Gandalf.
It's like Rip Van Winkle beard. Like, I've been hiding in the hills for 800 years. I'm not saying anything he doesn't already know that I feel. So it's not like...
Right.
Which is good because he's our editor, in case you didn't know that.
There you go.
And then we are going to wrap out the month with this book, which is called The Last Chance Library by Freya Sampson. And this is... a book that takes place in a library, obviously. And the last week of this month is actually National Library Week. So that's actually why I picked this. This book is supposed to be a celebration of libraries, but I couldn't tell you because I haven't read it yet. It also is a romance book. So there's that too. But I don't think anybody fucks in the stacks. And if they do, I just want to tell everyone that is not sanitary. Please don't fuck in the stacks.
Nope.
There's just so much. Do you know that we can get bed bugs in the library? Don't fuck in the library. Okay. Just don't do it.
Subways, libraries. No.
Public
not enough
places
Purell.
are just not a good idea. It's just not a good idea. We frequently have people who do not have secured housing that are bathing in our bathrooms. Do not fuck in the library, okay? It's just, don't do it.
Just don't do it. It's a no for me, dog. Like, there ain't nothing sexy about bed bugs. Nothing.
Well, Katie, thank you so much for doing
You're
this. I
welcome.
can't believe that I'm going to see you in a few weeks. I'm so excited. And girl, I've got that jumpsuit thing, and Molly said that she would
Yes.
zip me up after the bathroom, so I'm going to wear it.
Cool. Good. Do it. You looked cute in it. Yes.
Thank you. I'm excited.
I am probably going to do jeans and a t-shirt because that's where I live.
Well,
is in
we're all
jeans and
going
a
to do
t-shirt.
jeans and the Book Besties t-shirts for
Yes.
the con, but the swanky author thing, Molly and I got invited to a swanky like author meet. It's for the authors, and we got invited. We don't know how we managed that, but we might get to see.
Because you're big girl podcasters.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, all right. So we're going to go because we're over an hour. I don't know how we managed to do that because this book was not that good.
It's all right.
Sorry. All right. Till next time, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on Book Besties. Don't forget to like and subscribe. The views discussed here are those of April and Katie, not those of anyone else. Today's book was The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. This episode featured honorary Book Bestie Nurse Katie. Your Book Besties are Molly Biggs and April Watkins, editing by Thomas Watkins, and music is Sleep Sweetly by Prigida. Don't forget to follow Book Besties on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. If you'd like to contact the Book Besties, please email us at bookbestiespod@gmail.com or visit our website, www.bookbestiespodcast.com. Until next time, besties, get lost in your favorite book.